Canada has been struggling with keeping opioid addiction under control ever since 1996, when we decided to make opioids more widely available. Ever since then, deaths from opioids have continued to go up every year, sometimes more than 100%. Today, I'll be addressing the problem of Canada's opioid crisis. Before I begin, you may wonder, what are opioids? Opioids are a class of drugs used for pain relief and are widely tampered with on the streets to give people a better high out of them. There has been 158 opioid-related deaths in BC only in the month of March 2021. In March of 2020, there was 112 opioid-related deaths. That's a 41% increase from last year in deaths, and they keep going up more and more every year. So how did Canada end up with this trend? What started the climb in opioid-related deaths every year? As I stated in the intro, the roots of the crisis date back to 1996, when the government decided to make the use of opioids more widely available. Health Canada approved an opioid called OxyContin, which is a brand name for the drug oxycodone. Health Canada let people with moderate to severe pain take the drug, which meant that they would prescribe it to you if you had anything from back pain to a chronic illness, such as a heart disease. OxyContin was instantly a hit because of its advertised pain relief of up to 12 hours. Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin, persuaded doctors by telling them to tell their affiliates that OxyContin had a much lower risk of dependence than other opioids on the market. However, in the 2000s, reports of OxyContin addictions and overdoses exploded all across Canada. As a result, in 2012, Purdue Pharma created a new tamper-resistant opioid called OxyNeo. Since it was difficult to crush, snort, and eject, Purdue Pharma thought that they had created a perfect solution for the problem that they had started. However, around the same time, provinces stopped paying for OxyContin and OxyNeo and began to focus on prescribing other drugs in moderation, such as fentanyl and codeine. With oxycodone off the market, many people turned to the black market to feed their addiction, which led to a powerful spike in organized crime and led to a counterfeit version of oxycodone, which fueled accidental overdoses and addiction rates even more. Fentanyl is an extremely strong opioid that is up to 100 times more powerful than morphine when made properly. To put that into perspective, morphine is used in the U.S. Army to help soldiers cope with pain caused by bullets and shrapnel. Fentanyl is a very popular drug to get and sell on the streets in Canada because of how much is smuggled through the border from China. China's chemical industry has helped fuel Canada's opioid crisis tremendously by producing a variant of pharmaceutical-grade fentanyl by tweaking certain molecules in the opioid ever so slightly. When done right, a few grains of salt worth can trigger a high as potent as heroin. The most popular variant of fentanyl that is smuggled into the border is known as China White. Drug dealers smuggle the drug in and dilute its potency by mixing it with baby powder or powdered sugar. Dealers also put China White through a pill press to sell them as tablets to opioid addicts. Dealers smuggle China White through the border by shipping it in small doses that weigh 30 grams or less. That way, it legally ensures border control can't open the package. However, in May 2017, Border Control received authority that they could search packages weighing 30 grams or less that arrive through the mail and by courier if the package seems suspicious. Dealing fentanyl is not only easy, but it is also a big moneymaker. 1 kilogram of China bought from the dark web can sell 1 kilogram of China White bought from the dark web for as small as $12,500 can sell on the streets for up to $20 million. The opioid crisis has not only affected organized crime and death rates, but has also affected the well-being of our homeless population and our generation. The working class has definitely taken a substantial hit because of the crisis. In 2017, it was reported that 3% of people who are using opioids are using them for non-medical uses, and those are only the people who actually admitted it. More and more people every year are dying from opioid abuse, which has made percents continually rise. It is so important that we establish recovery programs for opioid overuse so people in the working class can get back on their feet after an opioid addiction. The homeless population has increased deaths from opioid overdose since the crisis began. 30% of the homeless population has been reported for known or suspected overdoses in 2017. Even teens aged 13 to 18 have been reported for a percentage of overdoses in Canada in 2017. 1 to 3% of the overall opioid overdoses in Canada per year has been from teens. It is so important that we get this rate down because this is our future generation, and the future could only get worse if the percent continues to climb and the future generation takes after what we did. And here is a graph that shows opioid deaths in each age group, and over the years. Okay. As I've made clear, the spike in opioid overdoses has been going up for 2 decades now, and it is only recently that the government has taken serious action against the crisis. Because of Stephen Harper's tough on crime policies, it has been hard, until recently, for people facing opioid addiction to get the proper treatment that they need. While the conservative plan was to take down low-level offenders, they failed to see that they should have focused more on creating recovery plans and harm reduction programs towards opioid addiction. The Conservative government changed Health Canada's website in 2007 and changed the name from National Drug Strategy to National Anti-Drug Strategy, ignoring any harm reduction type ideals. In 2016, the new Liberal government decided to take a new approach to the crisis for the better. The Liberal government changed the National Anti-Drug Strategy to the Canadian Drugs and Substances Strategy. The Liberal government's Minister of Health pledged to reinstate harm reduction as a key pillar in their strategy. One of the Liberal government's strategy was to change the opioid overdose antidote, naloxone, to a drug that didn't require a prescription, making it more available. The Liberal government also aimed at reducing the activity in Canada's underground fentanyl market by passing legislation called Bill C-37. This bill gave more authority to border guards to search suspicious packages, ban imports of pill press machines into Canada, and reduced obstacles in operating and opening medically supervised drug consumption sites. In a few cities across Canada, there have been some communities who lack adequate government support and have had enough of the opioid overdose and distribution in their communities. In Timmins, Ontario, there is a protesting group led by Lou Lemieux who call themselves the No More Movement. Their goal is to stop the distribution of purple heroin and fentanyl in their community. Lou Lemieux decided to make this group after recovering from an opioid addiction herself and seeing her friends and others in her community die from opioid overdose. The more research I did on this project, the more I realized how much this problem needs to be fixed. I believe we can hinder the chance of another opioid crisis to happen by first of all being careful on which opioids are prescribed to the patient. OxyContin was obviously administered to people who definitely did not need an opioid that strong. This led to 1,500 Canadians being hooked on the opioid right after it was prescribed to them. Another way we can prevent a crisis like this from happening again is to be sure that the doctors and medical experts who receive money from pharmaceutical companies from voting on guidelines. If they were allowed to vote on them, they could have a bias to making strong opioids more widely available so they could receive more money for prescribing them. The maker of OxyContin and Oxyneo, Purdue Pharma, broke this pledge, which is the reason the crisis started in the first place. I believe there will come to be many benefits after the crisis is over. Cities in Canada will have a lot less issues in their underground market activity and addictions, which will lead to a stronger and happier city. Of course, there will most likely continue to be addictions and opioid deaths in Canada, but once we get the crisis under control, we will have a lot less opioid-related issues to deal with as a country. I hope that the government will continue to make wise decisions in the future dealing with the crisis, and I urge you all to continue to pray for people struggling with opioid addiction or overdose. Thank you.